Welcome everyone to this ILTA webinar on KLapper, your virtual assistant no-code platform powered by Generative AI. My name is Raghav Jagannathan. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called chatbot Inc. We are the creators of KLapper, the platform that can create very powerful virtual assistants using no code, powered by Microsoft Azure Open AI service. Before we get started with the demo of KLapper, I just wanted to quickly open up a poll just to understand some of the key factors that would help your firm choose a generative AI platform. So we're going to keep this poll open for a couple of minutes and let you guys respond while I continue with my demo. So what is KLapper? KLapper truly is a unique platform in the market. It's a platform that can be used for creating virtual agents, virtual counselors, virtual assistant, aka chatbots, that are deeply connected to your firm's knowledge. With KLapper, you can create highly intelligent agents that are powered by data, information that comes from your line of business systems within your firm, your knowledge management systems like NetDocuments or iManage from a document management system perspective, or from your time and billing platform, needed to be Adder and Elite. Could be from your experience management system like, say, Litera Foundation. Could be from your CRM, your interaction CRM, for example. Or could be from a homegrown SQL database that you can connect KLapper to and let it learn the data using the power of generative AI, and surface that intelligence within the context of an agent, a chatbot, an assistant. So we're going to look at how KLapper uses intelligent connectors to connect to these data sets where knowledge lives in your firm. The second part about KLapper, which is so unique, is KLapper platform is built with security, confidentiality, privacy in mind. So anything that KLapper learns lives within the firm's Azure tenant. So all the learnings, all the generative AI, large language model tokens that it creates as part of the learning process, all that information is securely stored in your tenant, in your Azure tenant, with the vendor, being us, have zero access to that. So all the learnings is 100% secure within the privacy security of your firm's Azure tenant. And the last but not the least, KLapper is designed for adoption across any size firm, meaning that KLapper is extremely affordable. Unlike other generative AI platforms that has a big price tag, KLapper licensing model is based on per active user, and it just starts at $120 per user per year, along with some additional cost for premium connectors. So KLapper's pricing model is truly unique, and it makes this accessible, affordable to every single law firm in this world, regardless of their size. So on those 3 points, I'm going to highlight our intelligent connector model during the course of this demo. What you're seeing on the screen here is the KLapper dashboard. KLapper is a platform designed by attorneys for attorneys, meaning that it's a platform that is designed with attorneys in mind, knowledge attorneys, knowledge workers, business professionals, people who care about knowledge management innovation in a law firm. KLapper can be used by IT folks as well, of course, but is designed for ease of use. You do not need a user guide to create an assistant, train the assistant with knowledge from your firm systems, your knowledge management systems, and we'll see that firsthand during this demo. So what you're looking at on the screen is the KLapper dashboard. The dashboard basically shows all the different assistants that you may decide to create across your firm. We have firms that we're working with where firms are creating assistant by practice, creating assistant by shared services, for example, HR, finance, marketing. They're creating client-facing assistants that they can deploy on an extranet, for example. So these assistants, think about them as unique apps within this app builder platform that are sandboxed to just that knowledge and just that skill. Creating an assistant is super easy. You just click on the KLapper dashboard. If I refresh this page for a second, notice how I don't have any login, kind of username, password, nothing, because KLapper is integrated within your firm application using the power of Microsoft Azure AD or Entra ID. So it just automatically logs you in, and the person is assigned a role, aka an assistant builder role or an admin role. So currently I'm in an assistant builder mode. So the idea behind KLapper is to design your virtual agents, virtual assistants using the KLapper platform, and then you simply point, click, configure, and deploy the assistant on your favorite channel. Could be Microsoft Teams, could be SharePoint, could be your website, could be a client extranet. Frankly, it could be any of the 16 plus channels we support, including the amazing SharePoint search bar that a lot of the firms use from an internet perspective. So I'll show you some examples of that. So what you're looking at on the screen here is the KLapper dashboard. All the assistants, me as the assistant builder, I happen to be Raga, who's the assistant builder, has designed these assistants for different purposes. Creating an assistant is super easy. You can simply click on add a new assistant. That's it. And you can see the simplicity of the UI. It's not designed to overwhelm the user with many different buttons and controls and screens. If you want to create an assistant, you simply put the assistant name and the description, and it just gets created magically behind the scenes. In front of you. Behind the scenes, we do a lot of different processing, plumbing in Azure to make sure that all the hooks are created for that assistant to perform the way it will right now. So before the demo, I went and created an assistant called Legal Service Assistant. And you can see here's a blank canvas. So when you design an assistant in KLapper, there are two key things that you need to know. One is, as I talked about, intelligent connectors, are connectors that learns from your firm's data sets, the firm's key knowledge management applications. And the way you train KLapper, this particular assistant, on that knowledge is by using the Knowledge Builder module. The Knowledge Builder is designed for training this particular assistant with knowledge that lives on either my computer, like my own computer, the system builder's computer, on the internet, or within a private site within your firm, a file or files that lives on network file shares or online file shares, SharePoint, your SharePoint document library, your SharePoint list, and depending on whether you're a Net Documents or an iManage customer, we ship a ready-to-go connector for that as well. And we'll see examples of all of them in a second. Then we have the skill builder. So far we've talked about KLapper learning from your content sources and doing Q&A, but KLapper is more than that. KLapper has wings. KLapper can do stuff for the attorney. KLapper can do timesheet on behalf of the attorney. The assistant can basically approve expense claims, create IT support ticket. Really, sky's the limit. And I'll show you some examples of how KLapper Assistant can be powered, can really empower the attorney to do tasks on behalf of the attorney, especially timesheet. So we'll see an example of that using the skill builder concept. But let's just go ahead and train this assistant on a bunch of content that I have here. My computer, as the name implies, basically means that you can drag and drop any content from your local machine and train this assistant that I'm trying to build here. So I'm just going to drag and drop a bunch of documents from my local machine here. A PDF document, let's mix it up a little bit with a Word document. I can always click on the upload button. And my computer upload also allows you to upload zip files, RAR files, emails. It really, sky's the limit. So I can drag and drop a zip file here, which has a bunch of documents as well. And I can simply click on upload. And just like that, KLapper starts learning that content. You can see here it says uploading, learning in many different modes. We'll come back and check on that. Web URL basically lets you train KLapper, this particular assistant, on content that is on an online website. As I said, the site could be internal to your organization, could be external to your organization. So for this, I'm going to just use one of these. I'm based in New Jersey, so I'm just going to use this New Jersey courts, e-courts tax court FAQ, just to kind of feed that into KLapper and let it learn that content. What's most important to take away here is that the content could be, as I said, internal to your organization as well. So you could have inward-facing sites that KLapper can learn from. Because remember, KLapper deploys within your firewall, within your Azure tenant, inside your Azure tenant, which means that it has access to any of the content that you can teach it. You can see here it's learning all that content. So we're gonna go back and check up on it. We're also gonna upload a file. So file URLs are basically online files that KLapper can learn on. Right. So here I'm gonna go ahead and grab that file. Again, these files could be on your network file share if you're using that still, or it could be any other secure file shares that KLapper has access to, or it could be an online file. In this case, it's just an online file. So just like that, I can keep adding more and more content and let KLapper learn that content, right? So while that's learning, I'm just going to go ahead and connect it to some SharePoint content as well. So this is really cool. With SharePoint connector, you can connect KLapper assistants to any SharePoint data set. The data set could be in a document library, could be in a list, could be pages, SharePoint pages. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect to a demo site collection here that I have, a SharePoint site collection. And I'm just going to simply select a list on the site collection, which is basically a contact list. So I'm just going to go ahead and train KLapper on all the data in that SharePoint list, including metadata columns, including list items, and so on. If you're familiar with SharePoint list, you would know that SharePoint lists have metadata columns that has data about the data. So KLapper can learn not just the data, but also data about the data, metadata as well, that you can use to query through the assistant, do Q&A. So we're just going to select all the metadata columns, and we're going to go submit. So KLapper now starts learning that content, right? So let me quickly, while it's learning that, let me go and check up on these ones, make sure that we're going to remove that document because I have that open on my side, so it's not learning that. We're going to go ahead here and go ahead and check up on the SharePoint side, still learning it. Let's just look at iManage. So when you click on iManage, you would automatically notice a single sign-on happens, and you as an assistant builder, you get access to the content that you're allowed to train this model on, this particular assistant on. So I'm just going to do a live connection to this active library, pick one of my workspaces here called Legal 101 Contracts. And this is me browsing an iManage location live within the KLapper Assistant Builder platform. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and train this on the NJ dockets, this particular location. So let's just look at quickly what the content is in here. So it has a bunch of PDF documents and a folder and some nested folder documents. So we'll go and look at that later. So for now, I'm just going to train it. The idea behind that, this assistant is trained on a bunch of knowledge sources. Then we're gonna basically deploy this assistant in Microsoft Teams and let end users consume this content. So while it's training on all that content, notice how all the other training has been completed, right? So our assistant's now much smarter than when we started this demo. It's been trained on a bunch of documents that lives on the internet, a bunch of documents that I uploaded, a bunch of SharePoint lists with a lot of metadata, and also it's learning from an iManage repository. So while all that is going on, let's just go ahead and preview this assistant, see what's going on here. So right off the cuff, so remember, we're within the assistant builder platform, meaning that we are now creating the assistant. This is not available for people to consume. So right here, I trained that a document called Creative LLC something, right? It's a core document, Supreme Court document. It's got a bunch of many pages of content here, but something just struck my eye there. So I'm just gonna go and ask, what is CATA, for example? because the assistants learned of that content, the content that I've trained it on, it'll automatically understand the content. And if this content lives across multiple documents, across multiple sources it's trained on, it'll basically summarize automatically its response, and it'll automatically cite those examples, the references links. And the way you eliminate noise here is by basically going into the assistant settings and making sure that this is a setting that I want you guys to know is so unique to KLapper, because you can design the assistant to exclude internet results, meaning that it only gives you back content that is part of the training data set that KLapper has been trained on. So by having this setting called exclude internet knowledge base, you can be sure that any knowledge that KLapper is trained on is only from your data and not from the internet. And while I'm here, also notice how the response length you can control, like the medium, short, long, for example. If you're using this particular software for research purposes, you can basically control the response of that. Okay, so we'll continue to build the assistant as we go. All right, so let's just go and look at the Net Documents connector. The Net Documents connector, we have a similar model where you have the ability to browse to that Net Documents cabinet and train KLapper on the data. Right, so basically I can select a cabinet from right here, and I can real-time browse that content source. So we're going to look at, so you can see here I have lots and lots of folders. So I'm just going to go ahead and search for my specific workspace. And just like that, I can find a workspace that I wanted to train on, and I can train that content. Now, because we are using a combination of iManage and Net Documents, we're just going to stick with iManage for now. Okay. So, so our Knowledge Builder platform is really designed for connecting to these line of business applications, learn the data from those applications, that you can then preview the assistant, test it in the sandbox. Then we have this notion called Skill Builder. Now, before I talk about Skill Builder, we're just going to open up a quick poll, just do a 15-minute check. The poll we want to do here is basically some of the key business use cases that you're looking for from a generative AI perspective in your firm. So we're just going to open it up and keep it open for a couple of minutes. Okay. So while I talk about our Skill Builder. Okay, so our Skill Builder is very, very unique. So with our Skill Builder, you have the ability to create and connect to any one of the line of business platforms that you may have with our connectors. We have all these connectors I showed you, iManage, Net Documents. We also have a connector called SQL Server, SQL Connector, and a connector called Universal Web Connector. With the SQL Connector, Universal Web Connector, you have the ability to connect to any one of the data sources that you may have, either as a custom built web app, or it could be a SQL app. So let me show you. All right, so KLapper ships with a lot of different predefined skills. All right, so you can see here I have many different skills, but within and the skills only make sense when it's in the context of a specific assistant. All right, so we'll go back to our legal services assistant, and I'm going to go ahead and preview it. And while it does that, you can see here that the canvas is basically empty. All right, so let's just restart this. And right now I can go ahead and add my skills. So I'm going to go ahead here and add my skills. And as I add my skills, you can see all the skills that I've designed under the Skill Builder. I can add these skills right here, right? So some of the skills I'm going to pick here is basically my ServiceNow skill that helps me or helps this assistant create a support ticket. And I'm also going to select the timesheet skill, where the timesheet is basically this skill is designed for helping the assistant do timesheet on behalf of the attorney, and I'll show you how these skills are built. And then we have the Matter skill that helps you connect this assistant to a SQL database. Okay, so let's just go ahead and add. And when you add skills like that, what happens is that all of a sudden this assistant got a lot more smarter, right? So remember, there are two aspects to assistant building. The one aspect is what we've looked at for the last 20 minutes or so, the ability to create the assistant in a sandbox, test it. And the second aspect is when you deploy the assistant to any one of those channels we currently have here in this demo tenant. We support around 16 plus channels where you can build an assistant and you can deploy it in SharePoint, in Teams, in Zoom, in Cisco WebEx, in SharePoint, SharePoint Internet, SharePoint Search, and so on and so forth. Or you can deploy it on a website or even as a Windows app. So you have many deployment options once you build the assistant, okay? So for the purpose of this demo, I'm gonna go ahead and do all my demo in Teams. So I'm gonna go ahead and deploy this to Teams. So I can simply click on deploy to Teams so we can see the end user experience of how this will look from Microsoft Teams perspective. Okay, so Microsoft Teams, to save on time, basically I deployed this assistant already, but deploying an assistant in Teams obviously will not be done by a knowledge attorney or knowledge worker. You would typically work with your IT counterpart so that they can deploy that to a group of people and so on. So the deployment is super easy. Once we give you the package by using the deploy to option, you can instruct the person who is deploying this in Teams to use the side loading option in Teams to deploy it. But once it's deployed, the assistant that we previously built is basically now available here in Teams. All right, so what we call this connected assistant, meaning that as you deploy this across many different channels, for example, I've deployed this in Teams. You can see here there's an option called deploy to SharePoint online search extension. So we have an option to deploy this as a search extension, and I've done that as well. For example, the search box in my intranet, this demo intranet, is actually enabled with KLapper data, the content that is learned from those data sources. So let's just go and try this out now in each one of those channels. All right. So as I said before, there are two types of training that you can give KLapper assistants. One training is when you design the assistant, and the other training is private to the user, where the user can, the end user, the attorney who's using this assistant, can basically do training on demand, right? So for example, here, I can train this assistant on documents, for example, from iManage, right? But before I do that, I just want to quickly show you guys this this specific skill that I've added for timesheet, right? So let's go ahead and test this out here. So can you enter 2 hours today for matter? I have a matter number here that I'm going to use. And I'm just going to say that it was a client call. So a couple of things happen, right? So because it's using natural language, KLapper will automatically understand, because it has the skill built inside it, which is a timesheet skill. KLapper will automatically understand that this has something to do with the timesheet skill, right? And it should come back and resolve itself and saying, hey, it looks like you're trying to enter time. If it's so, let me know, right? So for the purpose of this particular skill, we are using a timesheet integration platform called Harvest. But we do, as I said, the timesheet app could be anything. Could be a application like Time by Ping, or could be Intap Time, or any one of those applications, right? So we'll let it come back. We'll basically see that KLapper will ask me to log in because we're using a demo thing here, or it's already, because I've done this before, just a few hours different demo. It automatically knows who I am. It basically does a time entry for me in this Harvest app. Okay, so it's doing the time entry as we speak. So it'll come back and give me a link to the time entry once it's done. All right, so we'll check back on that later. So also notice how there is a support ticket example here where you can create tickets for me, right? So you can see here it's going to enter time for me, and I can always go and view the time entry by clicking on view time entry, and you can see the time automatically got incremented for today to from 5 to 7. All right, so we also trained KLapper on many different documents, right? We can always ask any of the questions here. For example, I trained it on a specific website, which was this one right here. There are many questions and answers. So I can always ask a question, like, for example, I have a predefined question. So as an end user, I can go and ask the question here that I have, which is kind of motion. Remember, we build the Clapper assistant, the assistant builder, and we deployed that in Teams. We deployed it in SharePoint. So we're just gonna ping it in multiple zones as if multiple users are consuming this content. I have some predefined queries that I'm just gonna fire up, and I'm gonna ping it in this SharePoint site as well. So it's the same assistant deployed in multiple locations that's basically answering questions in an intelligent way with the data it's learned, right? So let's go ahead and we'll check back on that later. So we could go back to our Teams, and it'll come back and answer the question, right? So now while it's doing that, I can also go ahead and train this. I'm going to show you guys how you can train this assistant on data from the repository, like the DMS repositories that I have access to. Let's say I want to train on a specific document from iManage, right? So for that, I would just simply type in review document from iManage. I can type that, or I can select that command, for example, and send it either way. But the idea here is that once you type that, you can simply press enter, and it'll automatically understand that I'm trying to get some training done for my content in iManage, right? And notice how in the previous example, it's also put some information here, and it also does citations. So this is a key part of Clapper, that it not only learns content, it also learns where it learned from. If it's learned from multiple sources, it'll come back and automatically print those sources as well. All right, for me to teach this particular assistant with my content, I'm just going to simply click on select iManage content. And I'm going to train this particular assistant, my assistant in this case. This training is local just to me from some content in iManage. All right, so we'll wait for that to render for a second. It's just some authentication. And notice how on the SharePoint site, it gets back the content for me, and it also cites where exactly it got the content from, because I asked this question about NJ may withdraw from order from commission. All right, so we'll go back here. Let's click on that. And so what happens here is that it does authentication. It understands who you are as a user, and basically will let you pick the content. So because I'm conscious of time here, I'm just going to show you some examples of what I've done just in the recent demos. So you can see here, before it's one of the demos, I was teaching it some content from a client agreements folder that I have, right? And it learned all that content. I have the ability to basically ask it questions, rewrite sections based on certain sections, and so on. So it has the ability to kind of rewrite certain parts of the document that you trained this particular assistant on, and it can rewrite those sections for you and update the document if necessary. All right, so you can see many different examples here of how I've used this to train based on the agreements that I have access to. It takes some time. It takes a couple of minutes to train itself. And once it trains, I can ask it questions on all the information that is within that document source. Okay, so we call this end user training, meaning that once you create the assistant in the sandbox, you deploy that in Teams or any of your favorite channels. End users have the ability to train that assistant with their own simple content. And once they finish the training, they can simply send the switch document command to remove the content. So users have the ability to, for example, here, you would notice that I put the switch to document command to just simply remove, delete all the learnings that this particular assistant learned from my sources, just to make sure that no breadcrumbs are left behind. So because my documents might be highly sensitive. So end user training documents can be completely deleted by end users from Clapper's brain once the Q&A session's over. Beyond that, I'm short on time here, but there are many other examples here of creating documents. So Clapper can create documents on your behalf in net documents that I manage, populated predefined content. It can compare documents. Compare documents means that you can upload one or more documents with the baseline document to compare against. So Clapper can come back and summarize what are the changes and so on. It can even edit those documents based on best practices. And if you notice right at the top here, I also showed you guys how you can rewrite sections based on Clapper's intelligence, obviously using the power of generative AI, certain sections that is either from your law firm's playbook or from the internet. Right. So on that note, I'm right up at time. So we're going to just quickly open up the floor to any questions. If anybody's we'll take those questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending the webinar. Okay, so we see there's one question that's been asked here. Let's see. Okay, so the question being asked here is, can I design client-facing virtual assistants using KLapper and publish on my client extranet? Yes, you can do that. You can publish, you can create assistants with KLapper, and you can publish it across any one of those 16 channels we talked about, including client extranets, websites, and whatnot. Okay. I see one more question here. Do I need IT support for configuring KLapper? Yes, you do need IT support to basically install KLapper and make sure that it's ready for prime time use. Once it's installed and configured, building an assistant, you no longer need any support from KLapper. What if I'm using SharePoint as my DMS and have thousands of sites? Absolutely. You can use KLapper for learning all that content. Obviously, garbage in is still garbage out, meaning that you have to make sure that you're training the model, the assistant, on the content that people will care about. So as long as you're doing that, you can train it on hundreds and thousands of site collections and document libraries and lists. We will be, there's a question, multiple people asked us, are you going to record the session and circulate it? Yes, we are recording the session and we will circulate it to all the attendees of this webinar. Language agnostic, yes, it is language agnostic. You can have training done on English documents or French or Spanish documents. And because it uses large language model built on Microsoft Azure Open AI, you can text it in any of your 16 favorite languages that you have. You might want to use, like Spanish or Portuguese or any other language, including Mandarin, Cantonese, and so on. There are many other questions here. We actually have almost 10 additional questions. What we'll do is we'll answer all of them as a post note to this webinar, and we'll circulate it as part of the email that will be a follow-up with the recording. So I'm conscious of your time. Thank you so much for attending the webinar, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.